You know, I think it's very interesting the way that Digital Foundry works, and I totally think that they're a place that needs to exist, and there's lots of reasons why they are professionals at what they do, right? I think that that's obviously something that we have to look at, and I'm not hating on them. I think that what they realistically do is something that a lot of fans look to, and you want to get some kind of idea about the performance and stuff like that. I totally agree with that, and I totally think that that's something that should continue to happen. The thing that I kind of question a little bit is little instances like this where it seems like, well, did you really need to even do that? Like, is that a thing that should have been, done in the first place? And I think that's the part that a lot of people maybe question a little bit of, right? When we go, oh, is it okay? Should we, talk about this? I think that that's something that more or less is something that we should, as fans, look to and go, oh, listen, yeah, they did it. They did this, even though it probably didn't need to be done, but it's still worth noting, hey, I don't have to get upset about this or anything like that, but I did want to get a video, and because I saw some people talking about it, and I just kind of wanted to say, hey, relax, it's okay, trust me. But anyway, I want to get into it because it's a topic you guys don't want to miss. I'm sure that you guys are excited because I know I am. Hey there, everyone. I'm the Crapgamer, and this, of course, is Crapgamer Reviews, your home for gaming news, opinions, reviews, and much more. You'll probably notice some changes around here, and hopefully that doesn't stop you from giving us a like, and possibly maybe even consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some of your free time with me today. It really does mean a lot. Thank you. Now, what was this egregious video that they did? Well, they did a video, and they also kind of summed up everything in a nice little article as well, which I'm going to link that, and I think that we'll see what happens from this point on. But what was interesting is they did comparison videos with a solid-state drive enhanced Xbox One X. That's right, so an Xbox One X, the console that came out in 2017, the world's most powerful console. It eats monsters for breakfast, or, something to that effect from 2017. And then you look at, the Xbox Series S, and they kind of pit the two against each other to see what happens. And it kind of comes across as a little bit of maybe a jab at the Xbox Series S. So this is what they had to say. In the meantime, the comparisons between Xbox One X and the Series S are intriguing. Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, is an impressive-looking game, but the Series S version undoubtedly disappoints. We're getting a 1080p 30 version of the game on the S with temporal stable, but soft quality image. An option to unlock the frame rate is available on S, but only offers limited gains to a point where sticking with 30 FPS cap is probably the best option. And Xbox One X has the same 30 FPS cap with a much higher rendering solution. We're talking about a 1440p to 1890p image that holds up well on a 4K display. Series S has an edge in shadow and texture quality, but One X undoubtedly produces a better looking result. Halo Infinite? There's the sense of the game was designed to get the most out of the Xbox One X, as it has both a 30 FPS quality and 60 FPS performance modes on the resolution side of things. Quality mode is clear. Xbox One X win. Dynamic 4K plays dynamic 1080p running at 30 FPS, albeit with frame pacing problems on both systems. Series S enjoys some asset quality boost, but ultimately Halo Infinite looks better on One X with the 60 frames per second performance mode. Again, One X is a clear resolution winner with dynamic 1440p facing off against a dynamic 1080p, likely owing to its more capable CPU. Halo Infinite runs more smoothly on Series S, but again, resolution is lower. One X can see combat dip into the 40s and 50s, but is still holding up well as a whole. That's the sense that Series S deserved more from Halo, and perhaps that's exemplified when we look at Forza Horizon 5. What's interesting here is that both systems get excellent versions of the game, alongside Halo. It's clear that Microsoft is still investing some time into Xbox One X versions, even though the system was discontinued last year. You get a dynamic 4K presentation at 30 frames per second, broadly similar to but sometimes improving over the Series S's 1080p 60, and it looks beautiful. However, despite the more limited GPU power, Series S still produces the better game. Performance mode works very well, but the 30 FPS quality alternative looks wonderful. resolving substantially more environmental detail with overhauled modeled, improved ground detail, and less aggressive loads. It's an impressive looking version, though resolution isn't particularly high, but still, Series S is offering 2 modes up against Xbox One X's singular offering, while loading time improvements are still noticeable even with the legacy hardware running from the solid-state drive. Now, Call of Duty Vanguard throws up some interesting results, with Series S delivering a dynamic 1440p resolution, backed up with a Infinity Ward 8 engine, accompanied with temporal super sampling as well. One X seems to be turning into a 4K-like presentation. Through dynamic res is in effect here as well. You'll find more detailed images on the One X, though that's not the full visual picture. There are a range of visual downgrades on the last-gen machine. Characters self-shadowing, for instance, is less refined. Some incidental detail is lost while fog and smoke seem less dense. None of these cuts feels especially massive, but taken together they do make the One X version look somewhat less refined. Series S is essentially locked at 60 frames per second with occasional one-off frame drops. One X mostly holds the 60 as well, with a few frame rate dips in general gameplay during intense scenes. One X really struggles with cutscenes, however. These scripted scenes play back at 40 to 50 frames per second. So basically, they're talking about the two of these consoles and which one would possibly come out on top. And it looks like there's some very interesting things between the two of them. I find it to be very interesting because it's very much talking about something that some other people brought up, which was maybe the One X should have had the better CPU, and if it did, would it actually be the better console? I mean, it's hard to really kind of knock that line of thinking. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Far Cry 6 sums up the more basic cross-gen project. Visuals settings look very, very similar between One X and Series S, and both are relatively solid performers at 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second respectively. The 60 frames per second upgrade is a boon for Series S, but yes, resolution takes a hit and for it to make it happen. Series S tops out at 1224p and looks very 1080p-ish most of the time, while One X renders at a dynamic 4K and looks much more handsome as a result. Both versions feel stable and polished, although it could have been nice to see a 30 frames per second option on Series S at the moment. Far Cry 6 offers a stark choice between image quality and frame rate on Xbox One X and Series S. To get both, you'll have to step up to PS5 or the Series X itself. Far Cry 6 is a quite basic port. The exact opposite applies to Metro Exodus, which received ray tracing upgrade via the Enhanced Edition, radically overhauling in-game lighting. The game's artist-sculpted probe-based lighting system has been stripped out and replaced with the Ray Trace Global Illumination system. This is the new 4A engine designed with next-gen in mind, and it can only run on consoles with hardware-accelerated ray tracing, meaning that it simply wouldn't be possible on Xbox One X. The lighting is much more realistic as a result, with beautifully balanced and realistic fills each area. The improvement is such profound and indoors, which often look completely different as a result. However, targeting both ray tracing and 60 frames per second means that the resolution drops enormously on Series S, and while opinion will be divided on this one, I still feel that the One X may be the better looking game on the whole. Owing it to massively improved base resolution, Series S has a more natural appearance, however, and it feels much smoother to play. Series X and PS5 get the best of both approaches, of course, but the pick here is going to come down to personal preference. The decision to choose between the two would be trickier if Series S were to support a 30 frames per second quality mode, however, where resolution would be higher and retain ray tracing effects. On cross-gen games, the score between Xbox One X and Series S is almost even. In general, One X offers higher resolution at lower performance levels, while Series S compromises on resolution to deliver higher frame rates and more graphical features. Each system has their own unequivocal wins, but they seem fairly even matched when the games are overall. However, loading times are a clear next-gen win, even with solid-state storage attached to a One X. Again, it all comes down to the CPU, which often handles decompression of streamed assets. Interestingly, though, the Ascent's truly abysmal last-gen loading times are brought up to par against Xbox Series S simply by virtue of moving to an Xbox or a solid-state drive in the Xbox One X. Ultimately, though, while a solid-state solution makes a last-gen console easier to live with, the new wave of machines handled it a whole lot better. So, yeah, basically, they really did a good job of kind of comparing these games and comparing the consoles. I just found it to be a little bit strange to do this in the first place. I mean, maybe they'll do, and maybe they have, and I'm just ignorant on it. But, you know, run PS4 Pro versus, you know, PS5 version or something. I'm not sure that that would be exactly apples to oranges, but I did find it to be, you know, slightly interesting with just how they handled this. But at the end of the day, guess what? It's just their own thing that they were able to kind of look at and find for themselves and say, hey, well, this is how we, you know, check these things out, and you know, these are what we found with our findings, and I think that's fine. As a fan, I have to accept it. And do they have something in against Xbox? I don't think so. They just do little interesting things like this. It's a slow time. So anyway, I will link this though. You guys can check it out. It is kind of fascinating, and I would love to hear what you guys think. Sound off, rate, come, subscribe, rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up, crap gamer out.